many advantages in the Chinese market. I mean,
China doesn't really need Germany there.
China has suddenly become the innovation center. I mean, the combustion engine was invented here, but now everything really has shifted to China.
Rather than really try to compete in China, which is so tough, car makers should probably focus much more on the US.
慕尼黑国际车展于上周落下帷幕。期间，德国媒体表示，从车展可以看出，德国车企正努力追赶中国，但在技术、价格和创新上都面临巨大压力。中国车企凭借成本优势、快速创新和数字化能力迅速崛起，甚至开始超越德国传统优势。德媒认为，单靠竞争难以突围，德国车企或需将重心转向美国市场，应对前所未有的挑战。
You see Germany is making an earnest effort to catch up to the Chinese manufacturers, which was bitterly necessary, having fallen behind over the past few years. So they're making a serious effort to catch up with technology. The big question for the German auto industry is, can they catch up on price?
And what does that require?
Well, it requires a lot more competitiveness. It requires, Germany needs to get faster in terms of innovation. The models that China's not standing still. As we've also seen in Munich. And China's cheaper. There's going to be a lot more cars coming here despite tariffs that the EU has put on Chinese cars. So it's not going to get any easier for the German automakers. And not only do they have to keep up with technology, but they have to keep up with competitiveness and price.
Clifford, the German car makers are still profitable, but the outlook is quite grim, with most of them losing at least a third of their revenue in the last quarter. Just how bad is the situation right now?
Well, it's particularly challenging for them because, as we're talking about, the competition with China is particularly intense, and really trying to look at how do you actually compete with China, because they have so many advantages in the Chinese market. I mean, I went about 20 years ago, I think it was, I went to visit BYD when it was still primarily a battery factory, and they were just starting to get into the technology, and it was amazing, some of the things that they were doing, and you just felt that it was a matter of time. And the German car makers have also had to deal with the fact that they want to grow in China itself. So they're trying to deal with two different problems. So ultimately, I think this is probably going to be the biggest challenge that they face.
German car manufacturers are struggling, especially in China, where they were long the top sellers.
When you combine all these things together, you can sort of see that China has suddenly become the innovation center, which you wouldn't have expected a few years ago. Even simple things like they're with charging stations. Instead of having a charging station network, you just basically switch out the battery. These are the kind of ideas you used to get in Germany. I mean, the combustion engine was invented here, but now everything really has shifted to China.
I think the risk going back to China is that Germany served a purpose back in the day of teaching the Chinese how to make cars and how to produce a car, how to put all those bits together. They've now mastered that. China doesn't really need Germany there anymore. And so the mindset, this idea that the German car makers might be able to just compete their way out of this rut that they're in China might be a bit naive and might be, missing the reality of what's actually going on in China.
I think is the most promising market for European and car makers and German car makers in particular. And I think rather a little bit like we just said, rather than really try to compete in China, which is so tough, car makers should probably focus much more on the US as a very promising market.